Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking to you about my experience with Mormonism. Now it's going to be very different because I'm going back to my old ways. I'm going back to just literally going to be sat here talking. So basically I joined the church when I was young. I was 9 years old. And we'll put it this way, I'm not a fan of the Mormons, right? So the reason, I'll talk to you first off about my experience with it, and then I will go into why I am now out of it, and then why I stayed away, because the reason why I stopped going is very different from the reason why I chose to stay away. So first off, I'm trying to work out how old I would have been. So there's a picture of me on Facebook, and I'll insert it in here somewhere, and it's basically, you'll see how young I was, how young I looked. So, joined the church, basically I was 9 years old, and my mum came up to me and she was like, "Oh, I'm talking to some people about this church, would you be interested?" And at the time I was like, "Yeah, I'll be interested, let's go, take a look at or not take a look, but let's go find out a little bit." So we found out pretty much what we wanted to know, and everything was great. It seemed a nice enough place. Everybody seemed quite welcoming at first, and then basically you then kind of figure out that when you're not in the church, when you wasn't born in the church, you're not really one of them. Eventually, or I don't know, certainly in my case I think it might be in partly to do with the fact that there was nobody actually my age. The nearest either side of me was 18 months, so I never really fit in with either group, so that might have been part of it, but even still it was not great. I had a lot of fun there though. We played football, we did a lot of good fun things. I was very into it. I remember at one point I used to go up all the time and I was like, I know it's true. Now it's very different. My opinion now is very different, and I will get into that as well. So one of the things you find out about the people there is, certainly from my experience, the people only tend to really help each other when they're getting something back. So I remember once they did this thing, Helping Hands. And at the end of it, you basically spend the whole day, you do a project, so you'll be, I don't know what you'd be doing. We did some gardening or not just gardening, but like renovating a house. It was like I don't know if it was like an orphanage or something. It was like a communal thing. And then at the end of it, basically what they do is they get everybody to take a picture, and then that picture then ends up in the news, and everybody's like, "Oh, well done, we did a great job, we did so well doing this." And no, don't get me wrong, it's great that we were helping people, but it kind of felt a bit like they were doing it just for the sake of getting into the news and getting recognition for it. But then there was another time where, what would it have been, like 2009, 2010, we needed help because basically my granddad was ill and he was in Nottingham, so my mum had to keep going to Nottingham, and we needed help, and literally 2 people helped. But when we were getting recognition, when there was people who would have been actually paying attention, there was literally basically the entire ward was there, and for me that didn't sit well. And also whenever anybody else needed any help, we were always the first ones there. It was always Dad or Mum if she could, if provided depending on what it was. But if it was, say, someone needed some gardening or something, my dad was always there. Literally, there was whenever it was anything where it wasn't, where we weren't getting recognition, where we weren't getting anything at all from it other than just helping people, they were very, nobody did it, and that to me, like, no. But yeah, So that wasn't part of the reason why I left either. That was literally the reason I left. I was just lazy, in all honesty. Go to school 5 days a week, getting up early, and then having to get up a 6th day a week early. Like, no, I believed it still at that point. I just didn't, like, that was just an extra lie-in for me. That was all it was. Like, going to church, you just lose that lie-in. And I was like, no, can't be bothered. I'm just going to stay at home. That's literally it as well. Like, nothing else to it. But then the reason why I stayed away, there's several reasons why I've stayed away. Now, the first is the way the Book of Mormon was created. And by the way, they are still Mormons. You can polish a turd, it's still a turd. You can change the name, it's still the same thing. Regardless of whether they want to be called Mormons or whether they want to be called just Latter-day Saints, they are still Mormons. Still the same people involved, still the same people at the top. The first thing was the way the Book of Mormon was created. So, I don't know, we were never actually told this. We were told about the way it was created, but they left out very specific facts. So, the first fact, so the way that it was created was basically, that was using Urim and Thummim? I don't know how you pronounce it. It's been a long time since I left the church. Basically, what he did, he had like a seer stone or something as well, and he put his head, and this is where it became known actually, and it's been historically proven that he was a convicted, or he was a known con man, and he was, what was it? So his way of doing it was, he would tell people he could find treasure by getting them to pay him first, and then he would stick his head into a hat, I think it was, and he would like give directions that way, as if like he could see it through the hat. And he did that with the Book of Mormon. He had, actually I can't remember if that's how he did the con man, but I know he did with the Book of Mormon. He stuck his head into a hat and said he could see these words, and so basically everything was being translated to him, because they found brass plates, so everything was being translated to him, supposedly. But he ended up actually kind of being found out, but nobody actually fully called him out for it, because they lost some pages from it. So the Book of Mormon as it is at the moment, incomplete. And yeah, so it's incomplete. It's completely unfinished. Because there was, I think it was about 100 pages or so went missing, and when they asked him, can you do it again and retranslate it, he refused, and he said, no, I can't, I'm not allowed to, or whatever it was. So we will never know what he said, and for me, that literally just says that he's guilty of trying to con, because he literally, the only reason he can't is because he knew he would have said things differently. But yeah, so another thing that I found out afterwards, and this is something which has been proven by ex-bishops coming out and actually saying this, tithing is very important to the church. Obviously, that's the way it's all funded, the way everything's funded, so everything from new buildings to the websites to, I think the people at the top of the church get paid from it, I'm not sure. And the reason why it's so important, and it's even more important, is because if you want to build your way up, the way you can build yourself up is by paying more tithing. So ex-bishops have actually come out and said that the way it works when you want a calling is they will go by who... What is it? They'll go by whoever pays the most tithing gets the higher callings. Now it's supposed to be everybody pays 10%, and no matter what, you get the same blessings and everything from that 10%. But that's not particularly the case. Nobody's supposed to know how much you pay. not even the bishops. I don't even think bishops are supposed to know, but apparently the callings are decided by whoever pays the most. They get the better calling. So the bishops, the stake presidents and everything, they are basically the people who can afford to pay the most. And yeah, so then these next two are very political. So another reason why I stayed away, their views on same-sex marriage are controversial, and there's also the fact that they can manage to get involved in politics and somehow stay tax-free. Now, I don't know if anybody remembers Mitt Romney. He's quite obscure now. He was actually, his presidential campaign was partly funded, I believe, by the Mormon church. Now, as part of being a church, one of the things about that is that you have to stay tax-free. No, in order to stay tax-free, you're not allowed to get involved in politics. At the end of the day, you're supposed to have the separation of church and state. And when you have somebody like Mitt Romney being funded by the church, that then is breaking that rules, therefore they are supposed to pay tax. But somehow they've managed to get away with it and not pay their tax, despite constantly getting involved in politics. Things like encouraging people to vote against same-sex marriage as well. So I think there was in California when they had the same-sex bill. I think they actually campaigned against the bill passing, if I remember right. Most of this is just off the top of my head. So technically speaking, they should be paying tax, but because they claim that they're a church, and they say they're a church, which, I mean, they're a bad one. They say they're Christian as well, but they're not really Christian. One of the things about the Book of Mormon is that it actually says the words Joseph Smith more times than it does say the word Jesus. Now, as a church which is supposed to be Christian, I don't see how you can have a book with. In fact, I don't think it mentions Jesus at all. Now, I'm atheist at the moment. I don't believe in anything. I just think I believe in ghosts, but I mean, I've kind of seen ghosts, but I don't believe in like Jesus and in the manner it is in anyway. In the manner it's written, I don't believe that is necessarily true. I'm not saying it's wrong. I might be wrong. There might actually be everything might be right, but for me personally, I don't believe in it, and that's the thing. It's just about a belief. But for me, yeah, I don't see how a church, even if you go and by it being Christian and if everything about Christianity is right, I don't see how you can have a church where their main book doesn't even mention Jesus. Another claim they make as well is that Jesus went to America and lived in America. No, that's not true at all. I think it's not scientifically, I keep saying scientifically, it's historically proven that Jesus lived in Israel. So where they're getting this about America from, I do not know. What other issues do I have with the church? Could be here all day talking about it. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say my experience with it was necessarily a bad thing. It wasn't horrific. It was just full of lies and a lot of deception. So the things like the tithing being important to get further, we were always told that tithing basically doesn't matter. Oh yeah, I've just remembered something else as well. So something which was very inappropriate, and it's been proven that they do this all the time. So I remember when I was 12, 13. Now, if this was, if I was a channel big enough to monetize, I would probably be demonetized for saying this. But basically, telling this story anyway, I was asked, so I went to the temple in London. Nice, don't get me wrong, the temple is really nice. There's people, you can literally just walk around the grounds. The grounds, incredible. Still, the sites of some of the temples, they're really nice buildings. So, but that's all they are to me now, is just buildings. But I went to the London temple, and before I was allowed in, they ask you about, do you keep the laws, what are they called? Obviously, keep the 10 Commandments, the covenants that you make. Don't drink tea, don't drink coffee, all that mumbo jumbo. So they asked all that, but then one of the questions they always have to ask, and I must have got asked this about 20 times in meetings with the bishop, was, do you keep the laws of chastity? So you got to imagine I'm 12, don't have a girlfriend. So basically what that's asking is, do I touch myself? And I remember at the one when I was at the temple before they let me in, it was just literally me and him in a minibus. Is it minibus? Yeah, minibus. Because the meeting has to be one to one, but they shouldn't be allowed to ask that. I don't even think I had my parents present. I think it was literally just me and him. Now, I get that he's been told he's supposed to do that, but from the top they should say, don't ask that question, because that's an incredibly invasive question to be asking somebody, especially a 12-year-old. That's just ridiculous. But yeah, time I didn't think anything of it. So I'm going to wrap the video up there. That's about it. If you are new, then do feel free to subscribe. If you enjoyed the video, then do give it a thumbs up. And yeah, in the meantime, until the next video, I will be seeing you around then.